Contributor, former U.S. Ambassador to the United Nations, John Bolton. Ambassador Bolton, thanks for joining us. Talk to us a little bit about that. You heard that montage. Candidate Donald Trump used radical Islamic terrorists quite a few times, but President-elect Donald Trump also used that term. I noticed the White House still has a problem using that term.
Well, and they will for the next month, too. Look, I think when Donald Trump is sworn in, he has powerful incentives to do exactly what he said he was going to do in screening. Number one, he said it so many times, it's really a centerpiece of his campaign. And second, let's be clear, he'll be subject to unmerciful attacks if somebody comes into this country after January the 20th and commits a terrorist attack. I think we've got a massive amount of work to do to protect Americans from people coming in illegally, not just Islamic terrorists, but other threats to our national security. I think we've ignored not only the threat at the border, the third border, including airports and ports, but what happens after they get here as well. And this terrible tragedy in Berlin demonstrates the Germans have failed all across the board as well. We're vulnerable that way, too.
So Scott Walker was on this program. Governor Walker from Wisconsin was on the program a couple of nights ago, and he mentioned that states have virtually no say if there's a refugee that's placed into their state or the number of refugees that are put into their states. How do we stop this from happening? What do we need to do on the federal level to say, hey, states, you don't want refugees, you don't have to take them. We'll give them to California, Illinois, or New York?
Well, if they simply went back to the kind of program that existed 10 or more years ago, you know, refugees, which, let's be clear, these are people who are requesting political asylum, and they're doing it on the basis that they have a well-founded fear of persecution because of their political beliefs, religious beliefs, ethnicity, whatever. It's not just because they come from a war zone and they'd rather not live there, they'd rather live here. That's something the Obama administration hasn't followed, but typically what happened in the past is you'd have a church group or a family or an ethnic association that say, we'll help take these people in, we'll help integrate them into the community, we'll look out for them, so that states and local governments had some assurance that the people weren't coming in and then disappearing and not surfacing again. I don't know why we can't go back to that. I think it's a perfectly legitimate and sensible way to proceed, and it helps the refugees, too, the legitimate ones anyway.
Well, let's talk about what's going on over there in Europe. Well, Angela Merkel has her hands full right now with this Berlin terror attack. Have we not learned anything from them? Are we still willing? We noted last night that there's going to be somewhere around 110,000 refugees from all parts of the world, Syria, Afghanistan, Iraq, other countries, Yemen, who are going to come into the country. Is this a big mistake?
I think voters in Europe are reacting to it already. I think voters in this country reacted to it as well. We've got to protect our innocent civilians. That is job one for the government.
Ambassador, I want to get to this story before we run out of time. I think it's a very important story that we frankly haven't heard at all today, reported anywhere. The UN tried to push through a vote halting Israeli settlements. Now, the Obama administration has kind of looked the other way on this, and they're looking to possibly get this vote pushed through, but President-elect Donald Trump said, hold on a minute, before you do that, we vehemently, aggressively request a veto by the United States of that vote.
Well, the media weren't covering it, you're right, but this threat has been out there for months and very visible that in the period between the election and the inauguration, Barack Obama would do something in the UN, in the Security Council of the General Assembly, terribly damaging to Israel. Perhaps a resolution recognizing a Palestinian state, perhaps this one declaring Israeli settlements illegal, something that would harm Israel and prejudice the peace process. Now, I think Trump's statement was absolutely correct. I think it had an impact, but I think it had an impact on Obama. I think Egypt, which represents the whole Arab League here, it's not just Egypt on its own, sensed at 3 o'clock today that the United States was going to veto. If they thought that Barack Obama was going to abstain or even vote yes, they'd have brought that resolution to a vote. So this has been postponed, but I don't think we can say it's over yet.
Right. Well, Benjamin Netanyahu has pushed President Obama, to say that he would veto this vote if it were to come to a vote, and he's been reluctant to do it. Not until President-elect Donald Trump said, we will very aggressively push back on this. Did now Egypt say, hey, hold off, we're going to hold off on this vote?
Yeah, but my point is this, that registered on Obama. And I think what he said to the Egyptians...
But Ambassador, he wasn't going to do it until Trump said so. until Trump said, "Hey, we're going to call you out. We're going to let the world know that you let a vote. You let the Palestinians dictate our Palestine-Israel policy."
I understand, Eric. That's what I was just saying. Trump's statement caused Obama to say to the Egyptians, this is not the time to press the resolution. But I am worried that what they will do now is modify the resolution in some anodyne way and bring it back again in the days between now and January the 20th. So the threat has been averted for the moment, but I don't think it's over yet.
Okay. Very quickly, about a half a minute or so, what's our foreign policy in Syria look like? And it's a big, big picture thing. Very quickly, with what's going on with Russia, Turkey, Iran meeting to talk Syria left us out. Quick thought on that one.
Under Barack Obama in Syria and the Middle East generally, Russia has a bigger role, more influence in the Middle East than any time since the 1970s when the Soviet advisors were expelled from Egypt. This is bad news for the United States, bad news for Israel, bad news for our Arab friends.
All right, we'll leave it right there. Ambassador Bolton, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Coming up next, right here on Hannity.
The problem is we got all these filters. And look, if I watched Fox News, I wouldn't vote for me either. Right? Because you know, you've got this screen, this funhouse mirror through which people are receiving information.
Well, remember when President Obama said to Hannity, President-elect Donald Trump made several key additions to his incoming White House staff. I'm Eric Bolling in for Sean. Kellyanne Conway, Corey Lewandowski, TMZ founder and host Harvey Levin, and former Ambassador John Bolton will all be here tonight. But first, the president-elect making major announcements today. Kellyanne Conway will serve as counselor to the president, and the RNC's Sean Spicer will be the White House press secretary. Here now with reaction is Kellyanne Conway herself. Thank you for coming out and talking to us tonight, Kellyanne. First of all, congratulations from the deepest part of my heart. You deserved it.
Eric, thank you, and I know you mean that. I appreciate it.
Okay, so what made you make the decision? For a while, you said, I'm not going to go to D.C., I'm going to stay in New Jersey and hang out with me in New Jersey and bump into in restaurants like we did last night. What made it for you? What are you going to do for the president? Let's put it that way.
I'll always be a Jersey girl, Eric, that's clear. What I'll be doing for the president is I'll be in the West Wing as one of his senior advisors. The title is counselor to the president, and basically the portfolio is expected to include some communication, some data and strategy, perhaps some of the Capitol Hill or intergovernmental work. That's yet to be determined by the president and the rest of the senior team. But essentially, the way I've advised him all along will continue. It's both an honor and it's frankly very humbling. The gravity and the responsibility of the job of President of the United States is obviously possessed by Donald Trump. You see him in this transition, how energetic, how focused, how brilliant his cabinet picks have been. And I really think that implicit in being with Donald Trump throughout that campaign, especially in those closing months and through the victory, is that those of us who could serve would go inside with him and continue that service on behalf of him and Vice President-elect Pence. I also, you know, my main struggle was about my 4 children, Eric, whom you've met, and frankly, I feel very secure and very confident that President Trump's White House and indeed his West Wing will be a family-friendly place. I've seen him up close and personal with his own family, with his 10-year-old son, with his wife, with his adult children and their spouses. This is a man who values family, who's been great to the people who have worked for the Trump Corporation over a number of decades, whether they're observing Shabbos on Friday night and leave early, or whether they are women who have small children, and men who have small children, frankly, or sick elderly relatives. So that's been his practice. I know he'll take it into the West Wing, and this is a series of conversations I've had with him directly, and we came to terms, and I'm all too happy to serve him in this capacity.
Very good, very good. Kellyanne, you're going to be the senior most female in the White House. Can you give us a sense of the gravity of that?
Well, first, I would exclude from that description any of his family members. If his daughter or his comes inside, obviously she'll be very senior. Ivanka Trump, brilliant mind, obviously very important to her father in the business, and perhaps if things work out in the White House or in his administration, and certainly his wife Melania Trump has the role of First Lady of the United States. That's in and of itself the most amazing, I think, role and the most senior woman. But in terms of staff, you are correct. Right now that's the case. And also, I mean, take into account, of course, Eric, that you have a number of high-ranking women who will serve in the cabinet, Nikki Haley and Betsy DeVos and others. That's very exciting. So for me, I feel the same responsibility I think the men do on the team, which is to do what we can to articulate and to move forward the agenda that President Trump has put forward. It's very specific. It's there for all to see. It's his 100-day plan in the first few months. It's bold, and it's the one that America voted for, Eric. It includes 25 million new jobs over 10 years. It includes unleashing energy. It includes infrastructure, repealing, replacing Obamacare, immigration reform, renegotiating these trade deals so that they're more favorable to America, right, Americans, and the American worker. There's so much to do. And look, there's a White House office of women and girls. I'll need to talk internally about what that means in a Trump administration. That is something that obviously that may interest me or that my skill set would be compatible
Sure.
with, but it really depends what this president puts forward.
Sure, sure. I met all four of the beautiful young ladies last night at a restaurant as well with you. So let me transition a little bit. You talked about the first 100 days. In the wake of some major terror attacks around the world right now, the globe is getting to be a very scary place. Can you please nail down what is President Donald Trump's policy going to be with Muslim immigration to the United States?
So as the president-elect has said many times, and as people can even see on our website, he's been very specific about what we need to do more strongly and differently than what exists now. One is more careful and extreme vetting, as he refers to it, Eric, of people in countries where, or frankly, of countries where they're known to train and harbor and indeed export terrorists and terrorism. And that, I think, would help a great deal. Also, not looking the other way. When we see what's going on, we see what's happening. We know that ISIS has also said that they plan to, quote, blend in with the Syrian refugees and other folks who are doing a mass immigration somewhere. So that's very concerning. He also just wants to crack down. He wants this to be a sovereign nation that actually has borders and respects its borders so that we know who lives among us. We know who's coming in and not coming in. In addition to terrorism coming through our shores and over the borders, is that drugs are. It's people and it's drugs. And so there's great concern now. Every time he has said ISIS was involved in one of these attacks, either in San Bernardino or Orlando, or of course now in Nice and Brussels and Paris, and most recently this week Berlin, Germany, he's been correct. And he doesn't say it because he wants to be correct. He says it because he knows, and the American people who voted for him as Commander-in-Chief and President of the United States know, that terrorism is on the advance and that ISIS and radical Islamic terrorism must be stopped. So he is going to do things differently. If you look at the vacuum that was created after we got out of Iraq, it allowed ISIS and its predecessor groups to flourish. Right. And they're on the advance. They have not been contained. And I think the first thing you have to do, Eric, to defeat something is to name it, is be willing to name it. And he names it, and he's got a great plan. Also, he wants the allies and other countries to be involved. We believe there's strength in numbers, and we would love the help of others in helping to defeat and eradicate ISIS altogether.
Right, and he's certainly willing to name it, radical Islam terror. Kellyanne, before I lose you, I only have about a minute and a half or so. Mr. Trump also named some senior communications staff team. Sean Spicer, press secretary, we talked about. Hope Hicks has been there since day one. Strategic communications. Jason Miller and Dan Scavino, director of social media. Jason Miller, director of communications. I've worked with a lot of these people. They're fantastic. They're capable. They're able. Big group. You proud of them?
Oh, I'm enormously proud of them and very proud to serve with them in the White House. That's called 4 stars, that team. And Dan Scavino, I should mention, too, the director of social media, has been with the president-elect since day one as well. Jason Miller, obviously the comms director on the campaign. Sean Spicer, when I came on, shortly after I came on board and Steve Bannon came on board in August, we brought on Sean Spicer. It's a conversation we had with Reince Priebus on how to share Sean, and he has been fabulous up here in New York helping us with the messaging. But here's the thing. I think what's important about that entire team is that they're familiar with the president-elect and he with them. And there's a certain familiarity there. They're also proven to be able to just focus and put your head down and ignore the naysayers and the critics and the hostility that sometimes comes our way.
Before I lose you, I want to ask you this, though. How will this new team deal with, frankly, a very biased mainstream media?
Well, again, you have to name it to conquer it, and you just did. That's not true of all the media, but we recognize that there's been an unprecedented deluge of negative media to Donald Trump. But, you know, he's the President of the United States. The American people saw through that. And they know how to deal with it. They know how to navigate it. We also know how to forge positive relationships with the print and electronic press when they actually want to have complete and fair coverage. And we are all working on that on his behalf. He's working on that. He had an off-the-record briefing with media down in Mar-a-Lago on Sunday night, a cocktail party, which was really nice. And so we'll just continue in that vein.
Kellyanne, congratulations. I'm going to say thank you for joining us again.
Thank you, Eric.
Thank you. All right, coming up, sore loser liberals are plotting their next move to try to take down President Donald Trump, President-elect Donald Trump. We'll tell you what they're up to and get reaction from former Trump campaign manager Corey Lewandowski. And later, according to TMZ, Ivanka Trump and her family were harassed by an angry passenger on a flight earlier today. TMZ founder Harvey Levin will be joining us with the details. Plus, former Ambassador John Bolton is here later tonight to react to the terror attack in Germany. That and much more. Old, tired strategy of identity politics. Joining me now for reaction is Avenue Strategies partner Corey Lewandowski. Corey, so Politico is reporting that the Dems plan to mount a big battle at the nomination hearings. What say you?
You know what I think, Eric? I think once again, this is the Democratic Party who has lost touch with the American electorate. You know, what we saw was Donald Trump's decisive victory because he went out and he won in states that his message resonated in, which is let's get our jobs back, let's renegotiate our trade deals, let's not say that TPP is the gold standard and then change when I have political pressure on me. And so, look, this is the Democrats' playbook. It's right out of the old playbook. It's what caused them to lose this election in the worst electoral defeat since Ronald Reagan was reelected in 1984. The problem is they're out of touch with what reality is. And until just recently, the economic job growth in this country has been stagnant compared to other countries. Our taxes are too high, and the American people want something different. The only way the Democrats can be successful right now is attacking Donald Trump's nominees to fill out the cabinet because he knows and they know that those people are going to go and do exactly what Donald Trump said, which is streamline the government and make it more responsive to the people.
But they can't. You know, they can't. They can whine and cry and, you know, blame and point fingers. But at the end of the day, they got 48 senators. They don't have the votes.
Well, they don't have the votes, but look, this is how the system works. They want to go and make a bunch of noise. The bottom line is they lost, and elections have consequences. And it wasn't, you know, more than 2 months ago where most of the mainstream media was saying how this was going to be such a landslide on behalf of Hillary Clinton. And, you know, the Democrats are changing the rules. And don't forget, when the Democrats had the majority in the U.S. Senate, they're the ones who got rid of, you know, they're the ones who implemented the so-called nuclear option, which no longer required 60 votes to change the procedures. Now it's a simple majority. Now they have to live by that. This is Harry Reid's own doing, and they have to live by it for the good of the American people.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about some news that came out today. Donald Trump met with the CEO of Boeing. Remember, he pushed back a little bit, or he rather aggressively pushed back, saying, do we really need to spend $4 billion on 2 airplanes, a new Air Force One and a new Air Force Two? The CEO exited the meeting and said, you know, we're going to come in under budget. He's not even president yet. He's saving us money.
Well, this is amazing, right? This is Donald Trump in the mold of Teddy Roosevelt using the bully pulpit to say, look, you know what? I'm going to look at every single thing that the federal government spends money on. And I understand it was $4.2 billion out of a $4 trillion budget. That's 1/100th of 1%. He's looking at this and saying, we can do better. The American people deserve better. And now what we see is a CEO coming in and saying, you know what, Mr. President-elect, you're absolutely right. We're going to cut the costs. We're going to save taxpayer money, and we're still going to be able to deliver this on time. That's what we want from our president. That's what we expected when the American people elected Donald Trump. That's what he's going to deliver on.
What's the message to the other contractors that sell goods and services to the United States government? Should they all be on call as well?
Look, Donald Trump is a business executive and has built a very, very successful business over a 40-year career and has amassed $10 billion worth of assets. And what he's going to do is take that mindset and now be the CEO of the American public, be the CEO of the United States of America, and making sure that the taxpayers' dollars are used to the very best of their ability. And what you will see, I think, from Donald Trump and his administration is looking at every budget, at every number, at every program and saying, is this the best we can do? Can we take this money and can we return it to the middle class? Can we provide tax cuts? That's what the American people sent him there to do. That's what he's going to do as the next CEO of our country.
Yeah, and so talk to us a little bit about that. We've seen quite a hefty stock market rally since the election. What is that? I mean, can you attribute it to the Trump bump? Is that true, or was that just people finally happy that there's no longer a Democrat in office?
No, I think this is directly related to Donald Trump's election as president of the United States. And if you remember, before he actually made his acceptance speech saying that he was going to be the president-elect, the stock market had fallen. He came out, made a fantastic speech. The stock market has rallied and been rallying for the last 6 weeks. Look, the American people have confidence again. What he's saying is, I'm going to make sure that we're keeping our jobs here. I'm going to put Americans first. And I know that's a novel idea for some people, but that's what he's run on. And if you look at what he did with Carrier, where he saved 1,100 jobs, or the deal he cut with a foreign entity where they're going to invest $50 billion and 50,000 new jobs, he's done all of this before he's even taken the oath of office.
He seems to be proud of these things, and he should be. Honestly, I'm proud of him. He's saving me money. I'm a taxpayer. Corey, what does the future for Corey Lewandowski look like? What's going on with you next?
You know, what I want to do is I want to make sure that all of those individuals who supported Donald Trump that were outside of the main political system, whether it was the Republican or the Democratic Party, they continue to have a voice. So, you know, we're going to start a firm that's going to make sure that we can support Donald Trump's agenda of getting tax cuts done, getting better trade deals done, making sure that his nominees for respective positions in the cabinet are moved through the U.S. Senate, and making sure that in 2018, when you've got a number of Democrat senators up for re-election in very competitive states that Donald Trump won, we have the right candidates that are trained and the grassroots supporting them to push Donald Trump forward.
What will the company physically be doing? Is it lobbying? Is it a PR firm? What is it?
Well, I think, you know, it's not a lot. Look, I'm not going to be a registered lobbyist. What I am going to do is I'm going to be a consultant to some of the campaigns, some of the candidates who want to run in competitive primaries, whether it's for the U.S. Senate or for the U.S. House of Representatives. And I want to make sure that we're supporting those candidates that support Donald Trump's agenda. Right. Moreover, look, there are corporations out there that are getting killed by the federal government because they can't get an answer. And if we have the ability to help them get a fast no rather than a long maybe, then I think that's a value add that they'd appreciate.
One quick thought before I'm running out of time, though. So you were there from the very beginning. You saw this thing build and grow and turn into a presidency. What is it like? You're not involved in it right now, but just from the outside looking in, what are your feelings? What are your emotions about it?
Look, it's obviously very humbling to have had a front row seat at history. But, you know, it's so much bigger than any one person. Donald Trump has always said he is the person who's leading this movement, but it's the American people that have stood up. And, you know, they've been so disappointed for the last 30 years that Republicans and Democrats in Washington have lied to them. And they finally have a person who's going to go there and stand up for their own interests that isn't bought and paid for by special interests. And I think that's what the American people are looking forward to. All
right, we'll leave it right there. Corey Lewandowski, thank you very much. Coming up, TMZ is reporting that Ivanka Trump was harassed by a passenger on a flight earlier today. TMZ founder Harvey Levin will be here next with all the details, and then later.
You know my plans all along, and I've been proven to be right, 100% correct. What's happening is disgraceful.
After the terror attack in Germany, President-elect Donald Trump says he is 100% right about the dangers in taking in refugees. Former Ambassador John Bolton is here later to weigh in that and more as Hannity continues. And when they were reportedly harassed by a fellow passenger earlier today on a flight out of New York. According to TMZ, who first reported the incident, JetBlue personnel had to remove the unruly passenger off the flight. JetBlue released a statement about the incident saying, quote, "The decision to remove a customer from a flight is not taken lightly. If the crew determines that a customer is causing conflict on the aircraft, the customer will be asked to deplane, especially if the crew feels the situation runs the risk of escalation during the flight." Join me now with more is TMZ founder and host Harvey Levin. Harvey, thank you for joining us. Big story you broke today. I mean, I think every American watching this is scratching their head going, unbelievable that this family just wanted to board a plane and get to the other coast, and they're being harassed.
Well, I have to say, even people who don't support Trump are saying this is a jerk move. What happened was there was a guy and his husband at JFK, and they spotted Ivanka and her family. One of the guys, a lawyer, was holding a baby on the plane and screamed, your father is ruining this country, started as it was put to us by somebody on the plane, jeering at Ivanka's kids as he's saying this, and then also is kind of screaming out loud, why is she on our flight? She should be flying private, which I don't kind of get why he would scream that. But, you know, at first you just think, okay, well, it's a guy who just had his emotions get the best of him. But then we found out that this guy's husband, an hour earlier, tweeted or Facebooked, and this is a quote, Ivanka and Jared at JFK Terminal 5, flying commercial. My husband is chasing them down to harass them. So it seemed like it was planned to go after her publicly, and they did. They escorted him off the plane.
Yeah, and Harvey, you report that this guy was jeering at the quote, jeering at the children. I can't imagine if did the other passengers get involved?
Nobody got involved, and as a matter of fact, even Ivanka, she decided to de-escalate this by not even looking or engaging the guy, and instead what she was doing, she was concerned about her kids who were sitting there, and she started giving them crayons to color to try and distract them from this guy. But he wanted to make his point, and he did, and ultimately got booted off the plane.
Man, Harvey, I got to think, you know, you're watching, everyone's gotten on a plane, a lot of us get on with our kids, and all you want to do is get down, get the kids, and get them off on the road, and they have people standing in the aisle berating and harassing this clown. I don't know, should he be arrested?
Well, no. I mean, look, ultimately, this becomes the new normal for the Trump family, that there are people who don't like them and maybe don't like him and take it out on her. But it is kind of the new normal. She was extremely cool the way she handled it. My guess is probably people have screamed at her before. This was a little more problematic because she's confined with her family in these seats. By the way, she was flying coach.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you about that. What do we have a report on why? You know, look, they have access to private. But listen, I admire them for doing it. But JetBlue?
Well, don't admire them too much. I'll tell you what's going on. They flew JetBlue coach because they went with Ivanka went with her husband, with the 3 kids, and a bunch of cousins in addition to Secret Service. And there were so many people, they all kind of clustered in coach. But what happened was they landed not too long ago, and they were escorted on the tarmac to a private jet where they went to their final destination. So, yeah, JetBlue only goes so far for them.
Right. I think they have free television on every seat anyway. So, Harvey, going to say thank you very much. Thanks for joining us.
My pleasure.
Joining now with reaction is Trump Transition Team Executive Committee member Reverend Darrell Scott, psychology expert and radio host Dr. Gina Loudon, and Democratic New York City mayoral candidate Mr. Bo Deal. Bo, your thoughts on this? I mean,
well, first of all, stop knocking.
I want to arrest this guy.
First of all, stop knocking JetBlue. There is no first class to Florida. JetBlue doesn't have first class flying down to Florida. It's a great flight. I fly it all the time, and that's not the issue right here. Right now, this has happened to them in New York, Jared, and I know them very well. And beautiful kids. This is so wrong, and they're taking this in New York too. People are jumping out saying negative stuff to them. We got to stop it already. The election's over. You know what? We got to respect the President of the United States, whether you're a Democrat like me or a Republican. You've got to respect Donald Trump. He's going to be our president, and Pence is going to be our vice president, and we got to start accepting. And the Trump family is one of the nicest families, and those kids, I know every one of them. And how wrong is that for those little kids to be put into this situation?
I'm going to go to my other panel members here. Gina? What do you think of this? I mean, Dr. Gina, what's the psychology of this?
Yeah, don't you just wish, Eric, that we had loving, peaceful, tolerant types like this couple running our country instead of the Trumps? What a class act, first of all, on the part of Ivanka Trump. It's what we've come to expect from the Trump children and the Trump family in general, and how very tolerant, by the way, of her. Can you imagine, Eric, if the situation were reversed, and if this were, for example, a member of the Obama family, first of all, flying coach, we'd all be shocked. But it would be on the cover of every newspaper, you know it. And if the situation were reversed and Ivanka had said one word back to this couple, they'd be asking for a safe space, a cry room, and a therapy dog from probably the Trump. So,
and a juice box. Don't forget the juice box. The juice box is important. Reverend Scott, your thoughts on this?
I mean, this moron had no right at all to approach and endeavor or try to intimidate Ivanka Trump, or, you know, and her and Jared are probably the nicest couple you ever want to meet. This guy needs to be taken to jail. If this had been Chelsea Clinton or anything like that and someone approached them, it would be an outrage. But you know what I see? It seems to me as if the left is only tolerant of those who agree with them. If you disagree with them, they're very intolerant. And for them to approach her, knowing she has children with her and things like that, was very classless. It was moronic. It was stupid. It was idiotic. And they should have took the guy and locked him in jail.
The kids, that's relevant. They're with the kids.
But if you could see the character of this guy, he was holding a baby in his arms when he was opening his mouth there to protect them. And because if he was by himself, I'm sure there would have been another man that would have walked over there. And if I was on the plane or the Reverend, I would have walked up there and put him in his place. But he had the baby to protect them. And I would say, why don't you just shut your mouth and sit down? Respect people if you want respect.
Gina?
Yeah, Eric, and once again, if the situation were reversed and Ivanka had said anything even of the sort, Child Protective Services would have met her when she got off the plane to question why she would express such intolerance and hostility at someone on a plane. But this is a woman flying with her children. And these words were said not only in front of the couple's child, but in front of Ivanka's children. This is classless and in poor taste, and yeah, this couple definitely needs
And Reverend Scott, these two gentlemen, this couple got escorted off and took the next flight. It wasn't really that much of a hardship. Meanwhile, they have all this media attention.
Yeah, but you know what else? This was a same-sex couple. And if they had been approached and harassed because they were a same-sex couple, the entire country would be in an outrage. And so I don't even understand why they, of all dynamics or demographics, should have been the ones trying to harass and intimidate her.
About Bob?
Well, the final thought is that, again, the Trump family, the sons, the daughter, the son-in-law, all the daughter. I was at the wedding of Donald Trump Jr. and Donald. This is a beautiful family. We've got a great first family, and you know what? This is real wrong, and I just can't believe Ivanka had to take this and her husband and these children. I'm sorry to them. I apologize for this. This man,
and it's Christmas.
Whatever.
Yeah, and it's Christmas. Gina, quick thought. And it's Christmas. You're 100% right. Yeah. Go ahead.
Right.
Show a little love.
Yeah, Merry Christmas.
Show a little love, Merry
Christmas time.
We're going to say thank you to Reverend Scott, Gina, and mayoral candidate Bo Dietl. Coming up next, right here on Hannity.
You know my plans all along, and I've been proven to be right, 100% correct. What's happening is disgraceful.
President-elect Donald Trump says the terror attack in Germany proves he's 100% right about the threat refugees pose. Former Ambassador John Bolton is here next with reaction. And later.
The problem is we got all these filters. And look, if I watched Fox News, I wouldn't vote for me either, right? Because, you know, you've got this screen, this funhouse mirror through which people are receiving information.
Well, remember when President Obama said that? You know, he's at it again, blaming Fox News and conservative media for all of his problems. Lisa Booth, Nigel Innes, and Steve Hilton are all here later with reaction. That and a whole lot more as Hannity continues.
Breaking tonight, new video of that disturbing incident involving President-elect Donald Trump's daughter, Ivanka, allegedly being berated by an angry passenger on board a plane. Even worse, her 3 young children were traveling with her. Welcome to the Kelly File. I'm Sandra Smith in for Megyn Kelly tonight. Ivanka Trump was traveling with her husband and 3 young kids on a airport this morning when another passenger noticed her and went off. The man reportedly screaming at her, jeering at her children, and much more, getting himself eventually kicked off the plane. His partner posting this photo on Twitter, showing Ivanka visibly upset. And just moments ago, a TMZ camera crew caught up to the couple to ask them about the confrontation.
Can I just ask if you regretted it all, man? Was it a bad idea to do it in front of everyone's kids?
The incident raising serious safety concerns about the new first family. And in moments, in a Kelly File exclusive, Sean Spicer, the newly named press secretary for the Trump administration, will be here to respond. But first, Peter Ducey is live in Palm Beach, Florida, with more on this bizarre incident involving the future first family. What are we learning now?
Sandra, even though Ivanka Trump was sitting with her 3 young children, and even though the holidays are here, this agitated air traveler laid into her because he was so upset he had to share the coach cabin of a commercial airliner with her. According to TMZ, some of the lines this man directed at Ms. Trump included, quote, "Your father is ruining the country," and, quote, "Why is she on our flight? She should be flying private." But when given a chance to share his frustrations with the world, that flyer froze up. TMZ also reports the passenger who couldn't keep it together was holding a small child of his own, but still didn't censor himself. And don't think this was just a spur-of-the-moment emotional outburst, because before boarding, the man's husband tweeted, quote, "Ivanka and Jared at JFK T5 flying commercial. My husband chasing them down to harass them. Hashtag banality of evil." That Twitter account, which also shared a post describing the disruptor's demeanor as calm, has since been taken down, and the traveling party that was removed from the plane was delayed getting from New York to San Francisco, but they were still allowed to fly today because JetBlue booted them from that jet and rebooked them on a later flight, explaining that flight attendants were following protocol that goes like this, quote, "If the crew determines that a customer is causing conflict on the aircraft, the customer will be asked to deplane, especially if the crew feels the situation runs the risk of escalation during the flight." By all accounts, nothing ever got physical on this flight, and by all accounts, Ivanka and her husband, Jared Kushner, took the high road. They didn't yell anything back. Sandra?
Peter Ducey, thank you. Surely we need to discuss this. Joining us now, David Wohl is a Trump supporter and attorney, and Nomiki Konst is host of The Filter on Sirius XM Progress. So, David, what do you make of this entire situation? I mean, everybody kind of looked at this incident and said, what happened? But it did appear there was some premeditation with that tweet that was sent out by the man's partner saying they had spotted Ivanka Trump and he was chasing after her.
Right. He says he's spotted her in Terminal 5, which creates a security risk in and of itself. And then there was premeditation in the harassment, which makes it worse. And let's not kid ourselves. If they had done this to Barack Obama's children, they would not have been put on another flight as JetBlue did. They would have been put on the no-fly list. This is the type of juvenile behavior, this irrational behavior that has exploded among the left since Mr. Trump's huge victory. It needs to stop. If you have a problem with Mr. Trump, tweet him, send him an email. Do not attack his family, because you'll end up paying the price. And I think this is going to go further than just this being booted off this one flight. Well, it has to. This is really bad news.
If you're like me, Nomiki, you were saying, well, where was the security? First of all, everybody was shocked she was on a commercial airliner and sitting coach with her family. But then it was, where was the security in all this? Right. Secret Service was present. When contacted, they referred inquiries to JetBlue about all of it. But they did say Ivanka Trump has full Secret Service protection as the daughter of the president-elect. But still, for this man to berate her, a mother in front of her 3 young children.
Listen, I commend Ivanka Trump and Jared Kushner for living a civilian lifestyle, trying to live a normal life amidst the chaos of going into a Trump presidency. But she's not a simple civilian. She's not just the daughter of the president. You know, this isn't Sasha and Malia, who are underage in the presidency living in the White House. This is somebody who's trying to be a civilian, who claims that she's just the daughter of Donald Trump, but also shows up to high-level meetings with dignitaries around the world and is very involved in the decision making.
Well, she does not have any official role.
So that justifies her being attacked on an airplane with her husband and her children? And when this clown has his child with him, he attacks as well? I mean, nothing justifies it, and nothing can allow this to happen in the future.
But what backs up Nomiki, let me get this in here, because your same sentiment was echoed in a piece in Vogue today. They said this is just the latest in backlash against Ivanka, who has repeatedly declared herself just a daughter, while simultaneously sitting on her father's meetings and phone calls, meeting with foreign leaders. I go back to you again. I'm sorry. So that gives this guy the right to berate her in front of her family while she's trying to go on a vacation? Is that what they should expect? And are you okay with that?
I'm not okay with anybody being disrespectful of our presidency, no matter who that president is, and I say that as a Democrat. I think people need to be very careful and cautious with how they articulate their feelings. But let's be clear, this person was not violent. They screamed. They were like every other New Yorker who screams at people on the streets. I mean, President Bush had a shoe thrown at him. This is very normal. Let's not blow this out of proportion. Does that mean it's right?
What?
No.
You know something? I give Jared Kushner, I give Jared tremendous props props for being restrained and holding himself back, because I'll tell you something right now, had that been my wife, I don't think I might have done that. You're on a cylinder going 7 miles into the air, and who knows what's going to happen if those clowns are allowed to stay on the plane.
I don't condone
Good thing
it.
they were removed.
Let's make it clear. I don't condone it. I don't condone it. But let's not blow it out of proportion.
But let me just tell you, an eyewitness who said he was sitting 15 inches from Ivanka spoke to NBC earlier, and he said he completely agreed with getting this man thrown off the plane. He said he wasn't shouting, but he was physically shaking when he approached her. And he said that she handled the situation calmly, with class. It was security that ultimately made the call to remove him. He even claimed that his politics were not
Trump
with Trump.
derangement syndrome, Sandra. Classic Trump derangement syndrome. It's spreading, and it needs to be handled.
I think you're blowing it out of proportion. I mean, this is going to happen with any president. Now, let's be clear here. You're pitting one side against another, and you're making this guy the representative of the entire
left. If you have
left.
a problem with the president, email him or tweet him. He loves Twitter.
Absolutely.
Do
he
not
loves taking
attack
people
his
down
daughter.
on Twitter. He loves encouraging, extremism on Twitter. We all know that.
Thank you to both of you for sharing your thoughts. Now everybody at home can have
you.
their thoughts on that situation. All right, also breaking tonight, President-elect Trump announcing his pick for White House press secretary. It was long awaited, and now RNC chief strategist and Trump transition team member Sean Spicer has been chosen, and he's talking first to the Kelly File about his new position in the Trump administration. Sean Spicer joins me now for a Kelly File exclusive. Congratulations,
Thank you very much.
So how did you find out about the gig, by the way?
Mr. Trump called and said, congratulations. And I told him I was honored. And it was an unbelievably humbling moment to think of some of the people that have held this position and what it does. It's an opportunity to speak on behalf of this country, on behalf of the next president of the United States, and deliver them the messages and news that where this country's going and what it's doing. So it is humbling, to say the least, to realize some of the folks that have had this job and the footsteps that I'm going to walk in.
Considering Donald Trump ran anything but a conventional campaign,
right.
Everyone's wondering what is your job as press secretary going to look like, considering all the criticism we have seen from Donald Trump of the media, various outlets, individual reporters tweeting at them. What does your job look like?
Well, I think there's a difference between calling people out and understanding the role that the press plays in a free society. The press has a right to go out and write stories and communicate things. But I think similarly, in what Donald Trump has proven, both as a candidate and now as a president-elect, is that when people are wrong, he's going to hold them accountable and he's going to correct the record. So it's going to be he's used Twitter more effectively in social media, between Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram.
Do you like that? Will he continue that?
It's not a question of like, because it's unique. He has a direct pipeline to the American people to talk to them in a way that no one's done before. I think it's fascinating. It is absolutely fascinating, and it makes every day, every hour just unbelievable, because you know that you're having that conversation with the American people, and they can have it back with him, and he's not having to put everything through the filter of the mainstream media.
Well, you don't have to look far to see your name in headlines all over the place right now. Washington Post headline today: Trump chooses Sean Spicer for press secretary, rounds out communications staff. When you dig into the article, Sean, it says filling what is likely to be a challenging position given Trump's sometimes hostile relationship with the media and his propensity to bypass staff to communicate directly with the public on Twitter. That is some of the criticism that we are.
I don't know that it's a criticism. Look, he's the president of the United States. We answer to him. He doesn't answer to us. And I think what we do, we serve him and the American people and try to get the word out in terms of the communication staff. But he has a direct pipeline to them. And if he wants to use Twitter or any other social platform to speak to the American people directly, that's what he should do. He's the president. It's not our job to tell him what to do. It's to serve him and to help amplify that message.
All right, so let's talk about how your role might look different than previous press secretaries. One of them works right here at Fox News, Dana Perino. But you had hinted with Megyn Kelly on this program last week, maybe daily press briefings aren't needed. Are you going to do away with those?
I think what we need to do, and it's the same thing that Donald Trump's looking at everything in government, is can we do things better? Can we be more effective? Can we put the American people first in some of these. So maybe you saw how effective they used Facebook Live. Are there things that we can do? It's not a question of getting rid of certain things, or maybe we add certain things, but I think that we want to be innovative, entrepreneurial, as we look at all of these positions and all of these government agencies.
So will there be daily press briefings?
I believe that we'll have daily briefings, but maybe we add an element to them. Maybe not everything's on camera. Maybe we bring more people into the process. There's an amazing group of folks. You know, he named today Kellyanne Conway, Jason Miller.
What will her role be? By the way, she's appointed counselor to the president. She's the highest-ranking woman in Trump's White House.
And she was also the first female ever to win a presidential election. So Kellyanne is someone who's shattered the glass ceiling and continues to do it. But she has been someone that the president trusts to give her advice on strategy and messaging, and she will continue to play that senior role of counseling him, giving him ideas, talking about how to shape an agenda and a narrative.
All right, let me talk to you about a couple things in the news right now. Ivanka Trump and this JetBlue plane incident. What do you know about it? Well,
clearly there was somebody who was trying to act out of line, and I think JetBlue acted accordingly and took that individual away. They went on Twitter and made it very clear that their intention was to, quote, harass her and her family. That's inappropriate, no matter what your feelings are towards anyone in this country. To do that to a woman who was on there with her children, I don't care what your political background is or what your thoughts are. That's not the way we as Americans need to act.
Drain the swamp. Newt Gingrich had hinted that maybe that messaging was going away with the president.
I think the president made it very clear on Twitter today. It's going to keep going.
He did. So everybody's kind of wondering where the former speaker was coming with those words. But he has since retracted that, and he put out a message on his own social media that maybe that was wrong.
One of the things that I think people have to understand is that Donald Trump is the ultimate decider, and he will tell you what he believes and how something's going to get done. Other people don't tell him what he needs to think or do. And I think we've seen that time and time again. And look, when you look at the Lockheed story today about the F-35, the Boeing story with Air Force One, he isn't even president. We're 29 days out. He's gotten results on carrier. He's brought costs down on government programs. He is going to get things done in a way that people have never seen. The change that's going to come to Washington, I think, is going to send shockwaves through the system.
All right, it seems like every pick that Donald Trump has made, his critics have dug up something on them. Are they going to find anything?
I hope not.
Anything out there that we should know about?
I hope not. I think I've done a pretty good job but I hope that every day that I serve in this job, I make Mr. Trump proud, Reince Priebus proud, Governor Pence proud, and more importantly, the American people. I think that what he has asked of every one of us is to make this country proud of us, proud of the accomplishments that he's going to have as president, and make the country great again.
Sean, thanks for being here. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Still to come, new reports Eric Trump is responding to criticism and the controversies that plagued the Clinton Foundation by halting fundraising for his own charity. Trump transition team insider Anthony Scaramucci is here on that. Developing tonight, amid allegations of pay for play, Eric Trump will stop fundraising for his own foundation. The move is being applauded by former White House ethics lawyers, but questioned by supporters who want to see the charity work continue. In moments, Trump transition team insider Anthony Scaramucci will be here on that. But first, our chief Washington correspondent James Rosen has the latest on Eric Trump's decision. James?
Sandra, good evening. Apparently goes even farther, according to published reports. Eric Trump's announcement that the charitable foundation bearing his name is suspending operation. And with that announcement, the president-elect's son appears to have gone farther than he did the day before when he announced that he personally will stop soliciting charitable contributions. The Eric Trump Foundation has raised close to $8 million to help the cancer-stricken patients at St. Jude's Children's Research Hospital in Memphis. That step in turn followed the cancellation of an online auction to benefit St. Jude's, in which bidders had reached $72,000 to have coffee with Eric's sister, Ivanka Trump. Also this week, the family withdrew its name from a fundraising appeal promising million-dollar donors they could go on a hunting trip with Eric and Donald Trump Jr. and get a photo with their father. Kellyanne Conway, who will serve as a counselor to the president, bristled when a CNN anchor likened the Trump children's charities to the Clinton Foundation. A December 15th press conference in which the president-elect was to detail his efforts to separate the White House from his family's business empire and charities was abruptly postponed. Trump aides say nonetheless his divestiture plans will be in place and be made public before he is sworn in. Sandra.
All right, James Rosen, thank you. Joining me now, Anthony Scaramucci. He is an executive member of President-elect Trump's transition team. He loves to come in and give us the real story. So what is going on here? Eric Trump had a charity in his name. he's going to stop raising funds for that charity, or the charity is going to shut down altogether? What's happening?
Well, the charity is going to shut down altogether, so it's a sad day for St. Jude Medical Center. It's a sad day for charitable giving in that way. And so, unfortunately, what's happening in our society now is that we're very polarized politically, and we've got accusations of mudslinging going on both sides. And so Eric is doing the appropriate thing here, getting ahead of this thing proactively before his father becomes the president.
But let me stop
He's
you there,
shutting
because
it down.
some people are going to say that he's not actually getting ahead of it, that there may have actually been something more there.
I watched Jim's report, and so I really don't think there's anything more there. I think what happened is pre-presidency, come on a bear hunt with me and my brother. Pre-presidency, have lunch coffee with my sister, who wouldn't want to have coffee with Ivanka Trump.
Because that's really what raised the scrutiny of all of this.
Yeah, but all that stuff was happening, totally acceptable. Donald J. Trump as a business person, but now that he's going to be in the American presidency, the legal team's coming in there and really has to ring fence and shut down these efforts. And so, for me, Sandra, and you and I know each other a long time, it is a sad day because Eric Trump has been at the bedside of children that have died from childhood cancer.
Oh, I mean,
Eric Trump has also participated in the miracles that we've seen where children have survived at St. Jude because of the money that's been put there to help those children. And so now it's going to stop. And it's going to stop for those children because of the politicization, or the politicization, or however you want to say it, of the system. And so it's a sad day.
Okay, and we have heard from his friends, people close to him, said it pains him to do this. He's been raising money.
Phenomenal guy.
For this charity
I've
since he was
told my
21 years
children,
old.
may they have the arrogance of the Trump children, which is zero arrogance.
What did you make to the comparison to the Clinton Foundation?
It's unfair. We all know it's unfair, and I don't want to channel Kellyanne Conway, but you have to think about the Clinton Foundation. You had 94% of it raised. It didn't go anywhere. 6% of it went out. He did a 98.2% drive-through to the St. Jude Medical Center.
By the way, so we're talking about the Eric Trump Foundation being compared
exactly.
to. What about the Trump Foundation itself? Where does that stand?
You know, I don't know super amounts about the Trump Foundation, but my guess is, knowing Don McGahn as well as I do, and knowing the president-elect as well as I do, they want to give the appearance of no impropriety whatsoever.
Mm-hmm.
So when that press release comes out and Mr. Trump is standing at the podium answering these intensive questions from the mainstream media, you're going to get all these answers, Sandra. I think American people are going to be very happy with this family.
All right, so this
it's a
will probably
world-class group of people.
Breaking news to you, because the president-elect has been tweeting away, and he just tweeted this a few moments ago. The so-called A-list celebrities are all wanting tickets to the inauguration, he says. But look what they did for Hillary. Nothing. I want the people. That just happened.
That's a great. You know what's great about these tweets? You know when it's really him tweeting versus like some communications effort by our communications team. So my guess is he really tweeted that.
I talked to Sean Spicer, as you just saw earlier, and yes, he does most of the tweeting.
Look, I think it's one of the most effective tools ever. He's coming right over the top of the mainstream media, directly to the American people. And also the American people know when he's tweaking the media. And so when he says things, and I've said this before, Kellyanne has said it, he says things symbolically that really the supporters love, and the mainstream media takes literally, and they go crazy.
Which celebrities want to go to his, I'm trying to figure out who that might be.
I don't know. Well, one of them was probably Andrea Bocelli, right? I think that there's it's a big backlash. I really think that the message for everybody is unification. He's going to be our president, and he's doing a phenomenal job of trying to bring the country together. And so let's go enjoy one of the greatest historical celebrations for the United States, a peaceful transfer of power of the most powerful position in the world, Sandra. How about that?
Anthony Scaramucci, always
Merry
good to have
Christmas,
you, Merry
Happy
Christmas.
Hanukkah, all those great
to
things.
You as well. Happy
Kwanzaa,
holidays.
Happy Kwanzaa.
Merry, merry, happy, happy. Thanks. Coming up, President Obama with some words of advice for the president-elect regarding executive powers that has critics calling foul. Breaking tonight, stunning new video of the apparent terror attack in Germany this week, showing the very first moments of the horrifying scene. You can see a truck on the left of your screen barreling through the entrance of a Christmas market before some clearly terrified shoppers start running in the opposite direction just a few seconds later. This comes as we learn that investigators believe Anis Amri is the perpetrator of the attack, and he was no stranger to authorities abroad. And even in the United States, senior foreign affairs correspondent Greg Palkot has more from Berlin.
Sandra, we are at the Christmas market in Berlin. That was the scene Monday night of that terrible truck attack, which left 12 dead and 50 injured. This as the investigation into that attack goes into high gear, and that means the search for 24-year-old Tunisian man Anis Amri. German Chancellor Angela Merkel on Thursday saying that officials think they're close to nabbing him. They found his fingerprints on the cab of the truck. The local media says the police are still searching for clues. Reports also say that that suspect was very much on the German terror radar over the past several months, arrested or detained a few times, monitored, offering to commit attack within Germany. And reportedly, he was on the U.S. radar too. He's said to have been on the no-fly terror list. The officials said to have monitored him talking to Islamist figures as well as checking out terror websites. Now, Sandra, it is dark here now. In fact, this market is closed. But earlier today, we took a look at the market and talked to some people. Here's what we saw. Here's what we heard. It was here Monday night that a place of joy was turned into a scene of terror. A truck weighing something like 25 tons came barreling into this Christmas market here in Berlin, smashing into people, killing and injuring, hitting stalls, decorations, ending up there about 250 feet down the way. Now, 3 days later, this market is open again. A sign of courage, a sign of defiance.
Having it open right now, it's not just having feelings, but also for me it's a strong signal, it's a sign.
A sign of what?
That we are back on the road.
To show the terrorists that we stay strong.
The U.S. Embassy tells Fox News that 2 Americans were hurt in the attack. One has been released from the hospital, another is still in. We are told that there are 12 in hospitals right now, and all of them are in serious condition. That's the latest from Berlin. Back to you, Sandra.
Thanks so much, Greg. Tonight's headlines are causing some critics to pounce on the president-elect's proposed ban on immigration from some Muslim-majority countries after he suggested yesterday that the situation in Berlin proves that he is, quote, 100% correct on this issue. Pete Hoekstra is a former House Intelligence Committee chairman and former Trump campaign national security advisor. Buck Sexton is a former CIA officer and host of the Buck Sexton Show on The Blaze. Buck, I'll start with you first. Clearly, this attack has exposed problems with Germany's immigration system. What have we learned in the wake of this horrific attack?
What we've seen is that there were a number of points at which this individual should have been detained and sent out of the country. The fact that you would have someone who is known to fraternize with jihadists, who has been caught on surveillance tapes, talking about perhaps procuring weapons, who was clearly a security risk, was known to be a security risk, but they couldn't deport him from the country because he lacked a passport from his country of origin, just goes to show how inept, quite honestly, the German immigration authorities and German immigration law actually are here. There's also, of course, the security services failure. I know that they are overrun right now in Germany, in part because of the Merkel policy of open doors to much of the refugee population coming in from Syria and other places in the Muslim world. Because of that, they're completely inundated with surveillance needs for known extremists all across the country. This is a security burden that they can't really handle. But in this case, we're talking about somebody who made a lot of mistakes, who popped up on the radar. They should have detained him and kicked him out of the country or found a way to keep him in prison. They just dropped the ball on both immigration and security.
Congressman, I think that's what troubles so many. When you look at this attack and you look at all the details coming out of it about him, about where he came from, about what he's done, what we knew about this man, and how he slipped through the cracks and how he was able to carry out such a horrible attack.
And what it really does is it highlights how ineffective the West, the Europeans, and the United States have been in fighting this threat from radical Islam over the last number of years. We've got 5 failed states in the Middle East. What does that mean? It means that terrorists have enough of an influence in there to make sure that the central government doesn't control much of the nation. They include Libya, Syria, Iraq, and Yemen. We have 10 million refugees or displaced people in that part of the world. 1 million of them have gone into Europe, many of them into Germany. They haven't had the vetting. This is why Donald Trump's proposals make so much sense. What is he proposing? We're going to have secure borders. We're going to make sure that we control who comes into the country. And for people who come from terrorist regions where the governments are failed, where we don't have proper documentation, yes, we are going to have extreme vetting. So hopefully we don't have what they saw in Germany, an individual who they can't send back to their home country because he got into Germany and he didn't even have a passport. It shows you how hollow our national security policy has been.
And meanwhile, Buck, as we approach Christmas and New Year's and Inauguration Day, we wonder if what we saw there, if it's coming here or more of it based on recent attacks that we have seen. It makes you wonder what the terror threat is today in the United States.
Well, Senator, they're responding specifically here at the Berlin attack and others that it should be pointed out that have been thwarted by German authorities. There's just a plot in Australia that's been thwarted. But this is what the Islamic State wants. They want individuals who have radicalized on their own to decide to use everyday items, knives, vehicles, trucks, whatever they can to just cause mass casualty attacks in the West against perceived enemies of Islam in America and around the world. And this is going to continue on, unfortunately. It's very difficult to stop these kinds of attacks, which is why ISIS is pushing for them. And we are in a heightened threat season right now because they've also been saying that they want to hit us during the holidays. Yep. There's more congregations of people outside. So an enormous burden on security services in Germany, in Europe, and here in this country. And we just have to hope that we get it right every time, or else there are going to be more like this.
All right, Buck, Congressman, thanks for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
Good of you to be here. All right, well, coming up, breaking new developments on what's being called a turning point on the humanitarian crisis in Syria. Plus, is President Obama having a change of heart on some of his most controversial decisions in the White House? Wait till you hear his unusual advice to Donald Trump. Then we'll discuss it with Mark Thiessen and Jessica Ehrlich. As you might imagine, many critics are crying foul as Mr. Obama has made it no secret of his love for his pen and phone. Listen to this.
I've told my administration to keep looking every single day for actions we can take without Congress.
I've got a pen and I've got a phone. And I can use that pen to sign executive orders and take executive actions and administrative actions that move the ball forward. I've got a pen to take executive actions where Congress won't. Where Congress isn't acting, I'll act on my own. I've got a pen and I've got a phone, and that's all I need.
Mark Thiessen is a former chief speechwriter for President George W. Bush and a Fox News contributor. Jessica Ehrlich is a Democratic strategist. Mark, I'll start with you first. You've got a big smile on your face. It was a beautiful montage put together by the production staff of this show. I mean, he said it, and then look what he did.
It's quite remarkable the chutzpah it takes to say what he said in that interview. And the thing about his pen and his phone is that he's still using it. I mean, the day before he gave that advice to Donald Trump in that interview, he used his pen and his phone, took executive action to permanently ban offshore drilling in hundreds of millions of acres of the Arctic Ocean and the Atlantic coast. He took a 1950s era law written 75 years ago to expressly overturn the intent of Congress and the intent of the American people in this election. He's telling Donald Trump not to use his pen and his phone? Well, guess what's going to happen? Donald Trump is going to use his pen and his phone to undo all the things that Barack Obama used his pen and his phone to impose against the will of the American people.
Jessica, after what we just saw and heard, it is hard to imagine that President Obama has a leg to stand on offering this type of advice to the president-elect.
Well, I actually disagree. I think he has every leg to stand on, because what he's saying is basically like, do as I say, not as I did, which is actually very good advice in this situation, particularly given the fact that Donald Trump is starting with a majority in the House and the Senate, which is also how President Obama started. And then things fell apart and he lost that. And not only did he lose it, but Congress worked actively against every single measure that he had and every single measure that he put forward. And Donald Trump right now is starting with not only what President Obama felt that he had in both 2008 and 2012, which is a mandate from the people. And I think President-elect Trump feels the same way, that he has a mandate from the people, that he's going forward and going to execute that. He has the majority in the Senate and the House, and now is the time to work on that. And I think, what the president is saying is, don't lose that, without specifically saying, make sure you hold on to your majority and get the legislation done and try to do as much as you can, because otherwise that is what we'll end up seeing from Donald Trump, is having to do the same actions over and over if things fall apart for him.
Mark, you make an interesting point that it makes it a lot easier to undo a lot of the things that he did do with his pen and phone when you do go around Congress.
Absolutely. I mean, and look, right now as we speak, Obama administration's officials are burning the midnight oil tonight and every night going forward between now and January 20th to try and impose as many regulations and executive actions as they can in order to hide the hands of Donald Trump. So of course he's going to use his pen and his phone to do his best to untangle that mess that they've tried to wrap him in. But it's not just executive action versus congressional action. One of Obama's signature legislative achievement is Obamacare. That's going to get repealed as well. And the reason is it's not that he did go through Congress to pass that, but he had the House and the Senate and he had veto-proof majorities, and so he went through and he imposed that over the objections of Republicans. If you want to be successful, if you want your legacy to last, you have to get bipartisan buy-in. You have to reach out to the other party and bring them in so that they don't come in and undo your work when they come in and get the power to do it.
And Jessica, it does make you wonder when we saw the president, the sitting president, offer that interview and offer that advice to the president-elect. It makes you wonder the next few years, how much is the president-elect going to hear from President Obama? Will he be pretty vocal about his actions?
Yeah, I can't really speculate on that, but I will say that, President-elect Trump has said repeatedly that President Obama has really been very open and helpful to him and been wonderful during the transition. I think that will continue. I have absolutely no idea what President Obama will do going forward, or what his role will be on a national or an international level, on a local level. I really can't speculate to that. But I think Mark makes an amazing point in that, which I agree with completely. Whatever it is, whether it be Obamacare, I think that is actually how, everything sort of fell apart for Obama, whether he'll say it or not. He ended up losing control of the House and the Senate. And that's what leads to having that, where you have to do executive orders to get what you feel the people elected you to do done. Donald Trump is not starting in that position. He's starting with a position where he's got what he feels is his mandate from the people who voted for him. He has the House and the Senate. He now has the opportunity to have an incredible beginning of the next several years.
All right, Jessica, Mark, thank you.
Thanks.
Developing tonight, a vile and racist attack caught on camera in a Kentucky shopping mall. Watch.
Go back to wherever the you come from, lady. Y'all think you... Hey, tell them to go back where they belong. If they can't act like, they come here to live, then act like everybody else. Get in the back of the line like everybody else does. And be somebody. And that's the way I look at it. You're a nobodies. Just because you come from another country, it don't make you nobody. You're nobody, as far as I'm concerned. Probably on welfare. The taxpayers probably paid for all that stuff. I'm sorry, but that's the way I feel. I see so. That's okay. Speak English. You're in America. If you don't know it, learn it.
Now, some are calling for that angry woman to face charges, but a local attorney says no one's come forward to make a complaint. Here now, Mark Eiglarsh is a criminal defense attorney, and Eric Guster is an attorney and municipal judge who sees these type of criminal cases all the time. Well, Eric, you may not see this one because nobody's come forward.
Yeah. In the cases like this, you have to have a complainant. You have to have someone to sign a warrant to say, I want to bring charges against this person, because that any type of harassment charge, such as this case, would be a personal charge where the victim has to come and complain. It's a lot different than a murder charge or something else where just the state can bring a charge. So we're not going to see this one unless the victim comes forward.
I mean, Mark, what did you make when you saw this? I mean, it's happening in a JCPenney store. Obviously, you saw the video. It was a white woman, two Hispanic women, and one cut in line. I mean, this kind of stuff happens as the holidays. People are tired. They're hungry. I mean, people get upset. But, I mean, this was a racist, angry tirade.
Yeah. Sandra, I found her speech as gross as what I've allowed to grow on my face, but as outrageous and offensive as we all find it to be. Let's make one thing clear. I disagree with what was just said. It's not a criminal case. It is constitutionally protected speech. As outrageous and offensive as it is, the First Amendment affords us wide latitude to spew that kind of ugliness and hatred. Believe it or not.
Okay, what rights, though, Eric, does the mall have in all of this? Because they have responded. JCPenney has responded. They said that they would love to find the victims of the tirade, by the way, reimburse them for their purchase and apologize for their experience. But as far as the mall is concerned, once they identify the person, they will be banned from the mall. Do they have the right to do that?
The mall has the right to do that, but first, Mark is incorrect. Harassment is a criminal charge. That's abusive language, which this is 2 or 3 minutes of abusive language. Secondly, as reference to the mall is a public place, but it's privately owned. The mall has a right to ban anyone for any type of abuse, any type of offensive language, and it's actually in their code of conduct that is posted throughout their mall.
Mark?
So they will tell this lady that she cannot enter the mall ever again.
Mark?
He's right about the mall part. It's a private place. They can keep her out, issue a trespass warning. He's right on that. He's dead wrong on whether this is a criminal charge. Merely because people are offended, the Supreme Court has made it very clear. Skokie versus Illinois, the list of cases go on and on. We learned them in law school. You can be outrageous and offensive. I wouldn't mind if she goes to jail.
But you cannot use abusive language.
I would defend
you can't
her.
use abusive
language. So Eric, listen, if somebody who was present during that confrontation, if they're listening to this, what do you do if you see something like this?
This is the type of situation where you, number one, it's great that someone videoed it. Secondly, you have to let the DA know that you are a potential witness, because this person may need extra witnesses to talk about the situation, to give the scope of it, just in case it goes to trial. Because this is harassment. You cannot verbally harass anyone without expectations of arrest.
5 seconds left.
It's not a criminal offense. It's outrageous. It's morally wrong, but legally, unfortunately, it's permissible.
All right. We've got to leave it right there. Thanks to both of you. We'll be right back. Make sure you settle for more this holiday season and buy Meghan's new New York Times bestselling book. It's sure to inspire you to make 2017 the best year yet, and it will be. Jen says she took every experience and learned from them. She is a role model. Michael Nixon says life-changing book for girls and women of all ages. And Marty Lynn Black says, I was inspired. Her story has changed me and encouraged me to be more supportive of the women in my life and more honest with myself about what I want my life to look like. So buy your copy of Settle for More right now. It makes the perfect gift for anyone on your Christmas list. Last-minute shoppers out there, it's available now on Amazon or anywhere books are sold. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. I'm Sandra Smith, and this is The Kelly File.